everyone has some kind of unfair advantage, as I like to put it.
Tim Racette, welcome on the podcast. How's it going today?
Good. Glad to be here.
Pleasure to have you here. And I know you've been interviewed by one of my friend Usman Trong a few years back. I think I've seen you on different podcasts. But I want first to introduce yourself, tell people what you do, who you are, and a bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, so I am a full-time trader. I'm originally from the Chicagoland area, so I had the opportunity to get involved with computerized trading and some really good traders, both down the pits and in the computer, on the computer. And I do a lot of futures trading, as well as stock trading and a little bit of option trading, but mostly my focus is stocks and futures.
Nice. So one thing people are usually curious about is what was that kind of progress or that journey from you to begin trading until today? So I want to know why and how did you start trading exactly? How that started first?
So I actually had a buddy of mine who we were both kind of interested in, I guess, money and entrepreneurship as kids. And so when we started making some money, it was advantageous to want to be able to make more. And he had a friend, or he had a friend's uncle, I think, who worked downtown at the Board of Trade. So we got to go downtown to the pits, see what that was like, learn about the stock market and more so the trading environment. And this is mid 2000s, so well into the technical age of the computerized trading. And these traders that were down there in the pits, they saw us young kids. We were 17, 18, 19, and they're like, you don't want to be down here. The pits are drying up. We've got these computer terminals over to the side, and that's where we go do our analysis, and then we come into the pits and place our orders. I mean, some of the commodities pits were just a couple of guys. I mean, there really wasn't even enough activity in there to trade. And so they really turned us on to, computerized trading, put us in touch with some really really good traders who'd been on the screen since the 80s. And this is just north of Chicago. So, being fortunate that I was from that area. If you're from around New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, where some of these exchanges are at, just kind of being able to get put into the environment and then seeing where that takes you, talking to these guys who'd been down there for 20 years and hearing their feedback and, hey, what would you do if you were coming into trading now, in 2005 instead of 1985? Where would you start? And they really helped guide us towards, where I'm at now, which is strictly computerized trading and mostly futures trading.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best way to learn, to be surrounded by the right people doing the stuff that you want to do also. And did you have like one specific mentor, or you had to kind of try to find the people to teach you?
We had a couple of maybe two traders who were really kind of took us under their wing and their showed us their strategies, but more importantly, kind of told us what we didn't need. And there's so much information out there on the interwebs these days that it can become so overwhelming, and you just spend all your time researching and finding new indicators and tools, and you don't really spend any time trading or moving forward. So having them there to kind of say, you know start from the risk side first, focus on protecting your capital so you don't do something stupid and you know go a whole year of making gains and then in one day or two just blow it all. So kind of put some safety nets in place almost, and then we can start learning and growing and moving forward. And that was super beneficial because then I never had a account blow up situation. I mean, I've had trades go against me and silly mistakes that we can talk about, but I haven't blown through 20 grand or something on on one trade or something like that.
And what were the kind of strategies that we're using in institution and in the pit like this?
A lot of the pit stuff was trading between individuals. And a lot of times you kind of forget that, yeah, even though I'm looking at a chart or I'm doing some technical analysis or trading, clicking around on the dome, there's other humans on the other side of those movements, even if they're being executed by a computer or some algorithmic trading firm. There's a human who created that strategy. And so down in the trading pits, it was all reading the guys across from you, picking up on their tells, almost like a poker game. Um, Years ago, you would get news a little bit sooner in the pits before the rest of the world, before the newspaper and the media published it. And being able to assess what is our advantage. Are we getting news earlier? Are we Do we have a spread advantage where we can buy and sell here cheaper than someone could on the institutional side? And so just being able to adapt as the markets changed was a really good lesson because some of those guys, they kind of push back on the computerized stuff, and then they end up with no market to be able to trade anymore.
Hmm. But I really like that you said it's about understanding what advantage you have, like what thing you're good at. I think that people don't think about it sometimes today. They just try to find the right tool or the right way to make money without thinking of like how they like what they're good at, what they're best at. So how do you evolve from there to trading on your own? Because I guess now you don't hear the people screaming and the news coming up. So how do you trade
Mm.
without that today?
So, everyone has some kind of unfair advantage, as I like to put it. Uh, and it could be anything from you're just a super anal, detail-oriented person who likes doing puzzles, and so trading is just really enjoyable to you, and you can sit in front of the screen all night, all day and all night on the weekends, and just comb through charts and start, you know, discerning different patterns. Maybe you have some kind of, maybe you're just in a good financial situation. You don't have any debt, and you've got a bunch of money saved up, so you're able to, have this extra capital to learn how to trade and not feel the pressure of, okay, I've got to make $2,000 this month so that I can pay my bills. So it could be something as small as a character trait or something as large as, you've worked for 20 years in a career, you made a bunch of money, and now you're just sick of it and you want to do something different. And so now you've got this bankroll that you can work with, or an advantage of, like I had, being close to Chicago. That was, my unfair advantage, if you want to call it that. So looking, like you said, into yourself, what kind of things make me different, and then how can I apply that to trading, or even stepping back further and saying, okay, what am I really good at? What can I read about and learn about for hours on end without getting bored? And if it's, uh, you know, pruning trees and planting in the garden, then pursue that, or if it's something like trading or uh, computers, I mean, pursue those things that get you really excited, because there's going to be ups and downs in any career, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable if you enjoy what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good advice. So what would be your trading style today? How did that evolve?
So I started with stocks strictly, and it was just swing trading the daily charts. I wasn't doing any intraday trading, and I was looking to, and I still do this, I look to buy strong stocks on pullbacks and short weak stocks on bounces. I mean, pretty straightforward. And I don't get fancy with a whole bunch of indicators and things like that. I just kind of methodically go through and look for stocks that are, really strong. And then rather than just getting all excited because they're in the media and buying them up at highs, having a little patience to let them come back, maybe let them drift off the radar and out of the news, and then purchasing those stocks and then riding the kind of the next wave higher. And then when it comes time again for the media hype, well, I'm already in the trade, and more often times than not, I'm in the process of closing out that trade when all this media hype is hitting and it's spiking, and the more newbie folks are just jumping in on the news driven and emotions.
Hmm. So it's about not only following the crowd, because I think people want to do that sometimes, and they hear that that's the thing to do, trend trading, but waiting a little bit for, I guess, that pullback or retracement is a good way to go for sure.
Yeah, with anything, if you look around and you want to be just like everyone else, well then go do what they're doing. Go finance a couple of BMWs, buy a house on a mortgage with 0% down. It's easy to end up like those around you. But if you can, I guess, first be comfortable with the idea of being different, which was, a hurdle in and of itself. Hey, when people say, "What do you do?" Oh, well, I'm a trader. Well, what the heck is that? And why don't you go to a 9 to 5 job? Being comfortable with being different is kind of the starting point to be able to say, okay, I'm going to look at things differently. I'm not going to be I'm not going to follow the traditional path. So then when I'm looking for trading opportunities, I can look in a little bit differently or a different angle than 90% of the other folks out there.
Mhm. What were the things that you had to do to go full time trading for yourself? Because that was probably some kind of a big jump for you.
Yeah, so in college, I worked for electrical engineering firm doing CAD drafting, and I was trading at the same time. And a big part of kind of leaving college and being on my own and supporting myself with trading, I knew was going to have to come from having some money saved up because there's going to be ups and downs. I'm going to have some good months, I'm going to have some bad months, and I don't know when those are going to come. So, first, by doing the non trading stuff of cutting my expenses down, choosing an affordable place to live, uh, being raising capital to be able to, looking at the numbers and saying, okay, well, with a $5,000 account, I'm not going to be able to make 50,000 a year without taking excessive risks. So, kind of using 50,000 as that starting salary, if you will. It was like, okay, well, what is my opportunity cost? Well, I could go get a job out of college and probably make around 50,000 with the skills that I have and work my way up. So let's use that as a baseline. And then, okay, you start moving forward from there, keeping your expenses down. And then, okay, how much money would I need in my trading account to be able to make 50,000 a year? And then you kind of work backwards. And this was still stock trading. I started day trading futures, maybe a year or so before I would consider going full time, if you will. And so um, I needed a little bit bigger account size with stocks because, yeah, you have margin, but you still have to have money um, in your account to be able to buy these shares and have enough to get a return and then cover, everything else, commissions and that sort of thing.
Hmm. Do you think day trading was kind of a necessity for you to be able to trade full time, or you could have done that swing trading only?
You know, had I had more capital, I probably would have just continued to swing trade. But the appeal to the day trading part is, you can kind of chip away at, smaller winners throughout the day. Take this capital that you have, work it, and then take it out of the market and then do it over again. Whereas with a swing trade, if I've got 6, 7, 8 positions on and 80% of my capital is tied up and another opportunity comes along, I'm kind of stuck either with what I have or have to look at my portfolio and say, okay, what's not working out of these 8 stocks? What's the worst one? And do I want to close that out and put on this other position?
And are there any things that you see people now kind of do wrong? Things they don't consider when they want to go full-time trading?
Yeah, I've seen very few people get over the hump when they're in a dire situation, when they say, hey, I just lost my job, or I want to quit my job, or I need to make an extra $500 a month and I want to do it by trading. It's a tough position to be in. There's certain times like that where, hey, I got to make money or I'm not going to be able to put food on the table. And it drives you to work really hard. And in trading, working really hard is not necessarily what gets you to more profitability. And so it's not like, I'm a real estate investor and if I want to sell this house, I gotta, be out there on the street doing open houses, getting people to come look at the house. And if I work harder and smarter and more and hold more open houses, there's a better chance of, you know, selling the house. With trading, just because you make more trades or put on 10 contracts instead of 5, it definitely doesn't equate to making more. And so if you can position yourself. The markets are always going to be there. So if they're not, we have bigger problems than just not being able to trade. So if you can position yourself first, set yourself up, look at your financials, look at your bigger picture and say, okay, you know, if I want to start day trading and I want to do it with two contracts with a $5,000 account, first I need to learn a strategy. Then I need to practice it on sim. Then I need to go to just be comfortable with 1 to 2 contracts, get over that fear of pulling the trigger or maybe exiting when you have 2 ticks of profit because you're scared. Getting through all those hurdles, and you can do that with very limited capital, so you don't have to put all these pressures on you right away. Oh, I gotta take my whole 401k and put it into my TD Ameritrade account so that I can day trade one contract, one step at a time.
Yeah.
And then you set yourself up for more success. Maybe, like I had my full-time day job and I was learning to trade. And then I kind of scaled back and went part-time and then I was trading more. And then finally I got to the point where, my trading was uh, more than the part-time job, and then it's like, okay, I think I can make a go at this, but in order to get to that next level I need more time, or I need to stop this thing over here. And you see that a lot with entrepreneurs. Maybe you got a side hustle and all of a sudden one day your side hustle is making more than your day job and you say, okay, if I want to go to that next level, what do I need to do? Can I continue with my part-time day job, or do I need to forego that to put more energy into this thing over here? And sometimes it just comes down to the mental focus. If you're all over the place with 4 different ventures and a day job, none of them may really take off. But if you can really focus in on, okay, I'm gonna hammer away at this trading thing and keep my day job that's not too stressful, now you stand a better chance of making a go at it.
And did you ever feel like you wanted to go too fast in the process of trading full time, like skipping some steps? And if so, how did you kind of stick back to what you had to do first?
Well, when I first started trading futures, I traded on a sim account, and on sim, price only has to touch your order, where as opposed to in a real dome setting, if you're trading the ES or any market, price has to go through your order to get filled. Very rarely, once in a while, but rarely does price just touch my order and then I'm filled. So I was trading on sim and felt like I was doing pretty well. And then I started trading live, and all of a sudden, you need an extra tick to get in, an extra tick to get out. And it was a lot harder than I realized just by trading sim. But I wouldn't have known that had I not, started trading live. And so, yeah, that process, it takes time. And at the first couple years, I would set goals at the end of the year. I want my account size to be this much, and I want to be trading this many contracts. And I would get closer and closer to that date, and I wouldn't be there, and I would get frustrated. So then what I did is just got rid of those yearly goals, and or just rid of the quantitative part and put my yearly goal, made the focus to be in the mastery of trading itself, master my method, master my emotions, master my psychological state. And then it kind of took the pressures off of, okay, I got to make 50,000 this year, and we're halfway through the year, and I'm nowhere close. So now you have all these stressors that are, play into it subconsciously when you're trading.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that I kind of like. So master your method, because people sometimes think about mastering the market, where you should be focusing on your method and not the market. So I think that's a
Yeah,
big distinction to make.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
love that. And so I remember reading an article from you, maybe at the beginning of the year, about goal setting, how to set goal for the year. And I would like maybe if you can go through that, what that does for you, if it's important or not, and how traders should really set goals for themselves.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And goal setting, it can be done from a yearly perspective, but then there's a lot of things that we can do weekly or even daily to help us. We're looking at the horizon, that's our longer term goal, but then through the process, if we're, steering the ship, we might make little corrections left and right to keep us going in that direction. And so my approach, and this kind of goes back to my college days, was, okay, what kind of life do I want to live? And what do I want my life to be like, as opposed to working in something I don't enjoy, getting to 65, retiring, and then doing what I really want to do. I knew I didn't want to go down that path. And so I started from the top down. Okay, what kind of lifestyle do I want to live? I wasn't really concerned with big fancy cars and houses and things like that. So when you start putting numbers to that, and if any of your listeners, any of you out there have read, Tim Ferriss's 4 Hour Work Week, or there's other authors, Jim Collins, that talk about creating these bigger goals. I mean, it gets you fired up and it gets you excited. And so having some kind of dream is really good because you can use that energy and motivation. And then you can start to quantify things. Okay, if my dream is to live in Florida on the beach and, you know, be able to actually play and enjoy things and get involved with the community and do some of the things that I like, then how much is that going to cost me? And then you have to look at, you know, how much do I need to make monthly? And then you can start to break that down into weekly and then look at markets that might be able to give you that kind of return and opportunity. And then it becomes more manageable. And throughout the week, I'll kind of do a quick an 80/20 assessment and just sort of look at, okay, what's working right now and what's not. Maybe you're waking up really tired every day and you say, okay, well, what am I doing before I go to bed? Well, I'm watching TV till 11 o'clock at night. That's not working. Let me cut that out. And then you stop doing that and you start feeling better. And then a few days go by and you say, okay, well, what's working and what's not? Well, I'm waking up feeling better and I'm reading before I go to bed. Okay, I'm going to keep doing that. And you just kind of continue making these little corrections. And I've spent a lot of time reading biographies and studying very um, influential and smart people and entrepreneurs and very wealthy folks. And a lot of the similarities revolve in just doing little things, making a lot of little decisions and moving forward instead of, hemming and hawing over some, decision for a long time, just making little corrections, developing little habits, and doing a lot of that little stuff. And then it ends up equating to a bigger impact. Or when you look back, you say, "Oh wow, that I came a long way." And it didn't really feel like I was making these huge changes or huge decisions along the way, but every day you're just constantly, just like an athlete would go out and train every morning. You make these little improvements, and then over the course of a few months, it's a big improvement.
Hmm. And I feel like the same thing could go with the training strategies. You start from something basic, and then you adapt it, tweak it for whatever you have to tweak it, what works, what doesn't. And that's kind of how I did things myself also in the past. So that's pretty
Yeah,
powerful.
absolutely. Kind of focusing in on one market, one time frame, one strategy. Okay, in that process, you're going to learn a lot about how you think and internalize and react and your emotions. And there's already enough variables coming at you. So if you can keep things simple, then, again, like the sports analogy, if you're shooting free throws, you're just making little tweaks. Maybe you're moving your elbow and you're moving your wrist a little bit different, and you make a bunch of throws with one little change. And then you make another little change and then another little change, and you just keep working on those little things. You're not, completely changing five things at once, because then you never know what's actually working and what's not.
Hmm. Are there any personalities, maybe outside trading, that help you become a better trader?
You really have to be a persistent type person, and self-motivated. Um, I think you can learn some of these things, but I guess it would all have to start with your passion, or your desire to be a successful person. So not that you have to be a type A person, but you have to be driven to wake up and do something. And if you find yourself failing at a lot of things, whether it's dieting or maybe you started a couple businesses and they didn't work out, and your other buddy over here started a few businesses and they did work out, you know, how bad do you want it? How driven are you to commit, and when things don't go well, keep pushing forward. Um, and if you're in that camp and you're persistent and resilient, you can achieve a lot of things. But if you're not, um, that's something that I would look at improving if that's a direction you want to go.
Hmm. And I feel like when a business fails for yourself, we always see the other one succeeding, like all the time. But I think the question is like, what do you do after? Do you stop there and go to work with a normal job, or keep and trying again? I think that's a big difference.
So in the back of my mind, I always thought, or I still think I could always go get a job. There's always all kinds of things I can do. I can, dig ditches if I have to. I mean, I have skills outside of trading. So, you know, and that was always my thought process. And then a year would go by, 2 years, 3 years, and all of a sudden I look back and it's like, oh, well, I've been on my own, not working for somebody else for all these years. And so it, little coping mechanisms. So I also I'm a avid mountain biker, and I do a lot of competitive racing, and so I do a lot of training. And in bike racing or running or cross country skiing, I mean, you're training yourself to suffer and to get through the pain. And maybe your legs are burning, but you tell yourself that they're not. And we have all these little coping mechanisms that we use as humans. And so we're very good at tricking ourselves. And the same thing when it comes to trading, we have all these emotions coming in and these behaviors that are just already habits that we've developed. And, we can use these coping mechanisms to either get us through a hard situation or, kind of fall apart and then revert back to bad habits. And oh no, I've had two losing trades. I got to make it back right now. And it's okay if I break my rules this time and just take this trade, and then you just dig yourself into this big hole and that you can never get out of.
Yeah, and those are also these small things you have to work on and tweak and adjust over
Yep.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, I kept a lot of, I like legal pads or a spiral notebook, and just constantly making notes before a trade. I'd write down, um, you know, looks like a good long for this reason. And then I'd place the trade and go through it. And then you can come back to those notes and your emotional state, feeling nervous. My stop is 3 points away from the target or from price. Feel like I want to get out. And then you can go back and you can compare, okay, should I have gotten out or should I have not? And you make these little the key is to like make the note or jot down your thought before you know the outcome. Then you can go back and say, okay, are my thoughts, is my intuition lining up with what's actually happening? Because I've talked to some traders who've said, every almost every trade I take, I'm on the wrong side. So then what do? You just, when you think I should go long, well then actually go short. And, you know, it's not quite as easy as that, but that concept of what does my intuition look like, and is my gut telling me the right things? If you ask Steve Jobs or look at his decision making, he had a lot of good gut reactions that led Apple to be very successful. And so then that's how you build confidence, by saying, "Oh, I have this track record of making really good decisions. I have this decision making process that helps me think through my trading decisions. And, when I see a trade, I'm confident that I've done my analysis and I can comfortably place the trade without hesitating or having fear or sweating and that sort of thing."
Yeah, that's also big. And one thing I was stressed about by either mentors or people I've talked to is developing kind of multiple streams of income, multiple ways to make money, and diversifying a little bit. Is this something you sense that was necessary for you as a trader, or not really?
Definitely. And both in the trading aspect, for example, I swing trade stocks and I day trade futures. There's some months where there's a ton of swing trading activity and I barely take any day trades, and vice versa. And so having two types of income within trading is helpful. And then I extract money and I put it into longer term investments. So I've got this, longer term plan, this long term train chugging away. And then I like to be involved in a lot of stuff. And so, I sit on boards. I've been involved in other kind of startup ventures and projects here and there, nonprofits, or all kinds of stuff. I've had lots of little businesses over the years that you know the first handful may not have worked out, but then they've kind of led me to the next one. And then I take those things I learn, it leads to the next thing. And then all of a sudden I'm trading. And so, yeah, my little, such and such widget business may not have worked out, but it led me to develop the mindset and the skills to be able to trade. And then, in another few years, maybe some other opportunity will come up and someone approaches me and says, "Hey, I got this idea and I don't really know how to implement it. And what do you think about that?" And we just get to talking, and then the excitement builds. And then it's like, "Well, what if you did this and you could try this?" And that kind of stuff is really fun. And to be able to have the flexibility to be involved in different things, it is helpful because, like you said, trading could be really slow one month and you got to pay the bills. And if you know you don't have a big bankroll, then that becomes difficult. But it gets easier. It definitely gets easier. The struggle at first is really tight, pinching pennies. At least for me, it was. I didn't, you know, have some big trust fund or anything like that. So you hustle, you make it work, you keep your expenses low, and then as you start building your trading account, you can start doing things with your money, and then you take some risks, calculated risks over the years, and then all of a sudden a few of them pay off, and you're kind of chugging along with trading. I never really had a um, Tim Sykes kind of breakout where I made $1 million one year and then I just kind of sat on it. It's like you just kind of keep chugging along and taking trades, and sometimes you hit a bigger winner, but a lot of them are just kind of medium size, if you will. And I was fortunate to get involved in Bitcoin really early, like at $200, and I thought, oh man, I'm so late to the game. $200 is, you know, way too high. And then, a few years later, it was trading at 2,000. It was like, holy cow, this is insane. And then 6 months later, it was trading at 18,000, and then everyone started talking about it, and it was like, okay, yeah, this is not something to be holding on to. And yeah, I sold a good chunk of it, but you have other things that you invest in, and they don't do a lot. But if you put $1,000 into a startup or into Bitcoin, if I lost $1,000, my thought was, oh, my lifestyle doesn't change. But if it does something exciting, well, that does make my life exciting, or makes it worth it. So that's kind of how I look and assess it, different ventures or places to place my money. What is the risk and what is the return? Does it change my life if I lose it all? But at the same time, if it does something exciting, will that make things exciting? So,
Mhm. But at the same time, I guess combining other things with trading can be challenging. So I guess it comes down to organizing your day properly and scheduling stuff. Do you have a fixed schedule you follow, or is it kind of varying different between
yeah,
days?
I'm pretty regimented. Like I said, I spend a lot of time training outside on my bike, which actually I get a lot out of in a trading sense because I'm subconsciously thinking about things. I get all kinds of ideas, constantly stopping, pulling out my phone, writing down an idea. I mean, I've had more like light bulb moments in trading. I don't think I've ever had one sitting in front of the screen.
No,
It's
same for
always
me. Yeah.
it's always away on a Friday night, doing something else. And there were a lot of years where Friday, Saturday night I'd be reviewing charts, and you got to put in the time, but you also have to get away and rest your mind, and that really helps stay focused. I used to trade like 12, 16 hours a day or be in front of the screen and wake up and trade the European session, and after a while it just got too draining. So by keeping it focused, now I trade mostly the first 2 hours of the day. I can put on my swing trading positions, I can day trade, and then I can be super focused, and then I can be done. And I can go do other things, or just rest my mind and come up with other ideas for trading.
So do you have for you like mornings gonna be trading time and then afternoon something different, or how does that work?
Yep. Yeah, I find that my most productive times are 7 to 11, both in the morning and at night. So I'll do a lot of work in the evening, 7 to 11, and in the morning is trading and that sort of thing. And then in the afternoon, it can be anything from riding bikes to working on other projects, or I do a lot of work around the house and done a couple house remodels and that sort of thing. So yeah, lots of ways to spend your day.
Are there any kind of things you would like to touch on? Any behavior that you think people need to work on or adopt to become great traders? Anything we didn't talk about so far?
I think a lot more of it is mindset than people realize. It gets a little you know, fluffy around the edges, I guess, when you talk about positive mindset you know, and that sort of thing. But man, I can't tell you how many times I've been in like race situations or training, and if my mind goes, oh, this hurts, oh, I'm being negative, oh, I didn't get a good night's sleep, I mean, my race just can go downhill. But I've been in tons of situations where it hurts and I didn't get a good night's sleep, or I didn't eat something that I normally would, and I'm not as prepared, but mentally I can continue to push through and say, okay, just, get up this hill. Okay, get to that next rider. And then all of a sudden you start feeling good about yourself and that momentum. Like it's all about momentum. And if you get in a downward spiral in trading, you just go down, down, down. If you can get in a positive spiral, really play up your winners and downplay your losers and take things away from your trades, but don't get hung up on that loser you had this morning, then you just keep that momentum going, and then all of a sudden you might get out of that rut and you start doing really well. So mindset is super important, and you look at people who have done a lot of great things in a lot of different industries. People like Mark Cuban, he's got a really fun biography, and it starts with hustling, and you're pinching pennies, and people are, your friends are out doing a lot of expensive things and you're not, and you just keep at it, and then that leads you to the next thing and the next thing, and you believe you can do it, and then you know you'll have that breakthrough, but it may be 5-10 years from now, but you got to put in the time up front.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and that's a good example too of working out for sure. And people don't realize that this can work out in trading too. Same thing can apply.
Yeah, exercise is super beneficial for the brain. Even just going for little walks, 5-10 minute walks throughout the day, I mean, that's enough to recharge you for another few hours.
Oh yeah, and it makes a big difference the day where you trade and don't go outside, or the day where you go outside and trade a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, big difference.
yeah. Yeah, if you're trading in a basement, I would definitely recommend moving your office to some place that has some outdoor light, because it's a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. But you have to go out too for sure.
Yeah.
That's given. Cool. Awesome, Tim. So how can people find you if they want to connect with you or reach out after the podcast?
So you can find me on the usual social media places, Twitter, Facebook. I'm just at EminiMind, and that's also my blog where I just share trading, my trading journey, eminimind.com. And you can email me as well, tim@eminimind.com.
Nice, nice. And one question I like to ask my guests is what kind of goal do you have for the future?
Um, you know, I spend a lot of time thinking about, I guess, if you spend a lot of time chasing things, sometimes you miss the present. And right now I'm pretty content with, like if I ask myself, well, what would my ideal day look like? And then I stop and think about it, and it's like, yeah, today's pretty much exactly what I got to do exactly what I wanted to do, and that's a really fortunate position to be in. Um, the future of my trading, I guess, is to just continue on the upward trajectory and be open to new opportunities. I don't want to get stuck and think that, oh, well, I can do this thing forever, because just like the guys in the trading pits, things are going to change and evolve. And if you can't adapt, or if you can't see those changes coming and get in front of it, then there's going to come a day where, your trading strategy very well might stop working, or there's some new medium for trading, and then your market disappears. So just making sure that I'm continuing to see opportunities and not getting too comfortable is something that I definitely need to make a conscious effort to do, because we all can fall into that comfort trap.
Yeah. And out of curiosity, do you have a plan on how to do this? How to find these opportunities for later? Like, do you backtest things, or do you get ideas and then try them out? Or
Um, I don't do a lot of back testing. I do a lot of, I guess, forward testing. Like if I had an idea for a strategy, if I'm looking at a bunch of charts and I see something, then I would, practice it on a sim account, or try executing that hypothesis in real time, because real time is way different than, looking at a historical chart, and you miss things, or something does, you miss a lot of times. Losing trades get masked in backtesting. But always, if I'm a little bit more introverted, and my wife is definitely more extroverted, and there's times where I'd rather stay in on a Friday night and just, you know, read or do something else. But, there's a lot of situations where I sort of sometimes reluctantly, I don't want to go out, but I do. And you meet people, they may not be anything to do with trading, but you have some great conversations and it sparks ideas. And every once in a while, you'll meet another trader or an entrepreneur, and you get to talking, and then that's where some other idea comes up with, and you have skills that they need or experiences that you can share with them and that they can share with you, and then you look back 10 years later and you've got a new great friend or some business venture. um, so you never know when some of these opportunities and where some of these opportunities will come from. That's a lesson I've definitely learned over the years.
Yeah, that's a good advice, and I've seen that myself also work in the past for sure. So I like to
Hmm.
conclude this by asking, what is one piece of advice or one action step people should take like this week or this month to become better traders?
So I would say how you set up your morning kind of sets the tone for the whole day. And especially if you look at really, really smart or successful or talented people, whether it's sports, business, entrepreneurship. So if you can just sort of have put together a little morning routine. It might only take a couple of minutes, and it might involve, you know, um, anything from spending a minute doing some push-ups, or a minute reading, or a minute just closing your eyes and thinking about nothing. If you can just, put together a few things that you can do in the morning when you wake up, maybe it's just sitting quietly reading the paper for a few minutes, just to kind of start your day and get you to a place that you're motivated and ready to get things going. That can then you can build on that momentum, just like we were talking about, and set up your day for success. If you wake up and the first thing you do is check your email on your phone in your bed, and all of a sudden you go into panic mode, then it just kind of spoils the whole day. So if you can, before you go to bed, kind of plan out the first couple minutes of your day, that can really make the difference in a good trading day versus a flustered one that you wish you could take back.
I love that, love that. Tim Racette, thanks so much for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.